Hello and welcome to Business Automation Library. My name is Masan and today we're building a smart employee onboarding automation using n8n, Claude, Slack, Notion, and Gmail. When a new hire submits a Google form, this system will validate the submission, generate a personalized welcome message, and a 30, 60, 90-day plan with Claude, sends the hiring manager a Slack approval message with approve and deny buttons, and on approval, creates a Notion onboarding checklist, sends a formatted welcome email to the new hire, and logs everything to Google Sheets. We'll cover the architecture, walk through every node in the workflow, and see it run end to end with a test. All the files are shared in GitHub, and a full technical guide is linked in the description as well. Onboarding a new employee involves the same steps every time. Someone submits the details, a manager needs to approve, accounts need to be created, a welcome email needs to go out. It's repetitive and manual, and oftentimes things will get missed. This workflow automates most of that. A Google form submission kicks off. Claude writes a personalized welcome message and a 30, 60, 90 plan for the new hire. The hiring manager gets a Slack message with an approve or deny button. On approval, a Notion checklist is created and a welcome email goes out. Every step is logged to Google Sheets. If the form is invalid, HR will get an alert. If the manager denies, HR is notified. If no one responds in 48 hours, then it would naturally escalate. So building this system, you're building fail safes for all of those common delays that happen within business. This system is all orchestrated on a single n8n workflow with over 20 nodes. A Google form collects 6 fields: employee name, personal email, role, department, start date, and manager email. Then a Google Apps script attached to the form fires on submission and posts the responses as JSON to the n8n webhook. Then we have another node to validate the payload. It reads the form data from the nested body field. The app script post wraps the field inside of a body object, checks that all 6 fields required are present, and if any are missing, it returns valid, false, and if no to the HR error email. If all fields are present, it normalizes the data and generates a work email from the employee's name and the configured company domain. Node 3 is where we start to use Anthropic or Claude. It sends the employee name, role, department, and start date to Claude Sonnet and asks for a structured JSON back, a welcome message, and a 30, 60, 90-day plan with 3 milestones per phase. Let's actually hop into the platform and show this. Now jumping into n8n, we'll walk through each node in this automation. Starting with the webhook trigger, which is from the Google Forms script link, we will then validate the fields that come in. So this includes the email, the person's name, their role, and which department they'll go into. If the accepted fields are valid, then first let's talk about what happens if it's invalid. We'll basically send an error email to HR, which then eventually gets tagged with the status of error and logged into the Google Sheet. If it successfully validates the fields, then we'll send a package to Claude to generate a welcome email package to our specifications, which includes a 30, 60-day, 90-day onboarding plan. So after we get the response from Claude, we'll parse the response. This just helps to remove any extra formatting that Claude might attach. Of course, we're already trying to specify that within the prompt, but we're just ensuring with extra code here using JavaScript. Then we'll build an approval message, which will ask the approver whether or not they accept this onboarding plan. Then we'll actually get the manager who was listed in the Google form. We'll send that manager a Slack message and then wait for a response. If the response is accepted, then we'll go into this branch. If it's timed out, meaning 48 hours or more, or 48 hours, then we'll essentially go through the same sort of error path. We'll send an email to HR saying that the onboarding request timed out. We'll tag it with a status and then log it to the Google Sheet. If it's approved, then we'll send a Slack invite to the person who's being onboarded. If it's denied, then we'll follow a similar path, email, deny, and then log it. If it's approved, though, we'll send the Slack invite to the person, we'll merge all the results, and then we'll route the data to Notion. So Notion is kind of like an interactive tool where you can have database and have basically a checklist for each new person that you onboard. It's kind of like a product management and collaboration tool. And so we'll create a bunch of onboarding tasks there, which I'll show you later. After that, we merge the results again, and then we are building a welcome email for the new person. And then we have a series of pass-through statements. And all this means is we're recalling previous uh, values. So I'll just open this up because it's a little different. So all that's happening here is that we're ensuring the proper values are called right before this step. So as we're doing all of calling all of these things in the automation, some of it might be overwritten or might not be queued up for the next cell or the next node to take. So all we're doing with this is just ensuring that it's available. So we'll send the welcome email after that first pass-through statement. Then we call it again to, re-prepare the details. Then we send a Slack announcement. We'll then pass through again and then send Slack to the manager. That all goes through. And then we finally build all of that into the audit log. So all of the final statuses go to this basically uh, build step, which sends data to the audit log, which is in Google Sheets. And that's really it. For the tech stack, n8n is our workflow orchestrator. It handles the webhook, all API calls, the wait approval gate, Google Sheets logging. I'm building it on a self-hosted VPS. We then use Google Forms and AppScript as the intake layer. This could be swapped out with any other type of technology, type form or something like that. The form collects new hire data. Of course, we could set some fields to be static, for example, the manager or other fields that your business might not want to change. And then simple app script triggers a response and sends JSON to the n8n webhook every single time a form is submitted. So you don't even need a Google Cloud project for this. It's quite simple just to use the form. Then Claude is only called once per submission. And in this project, we're only using 1,500 tokens per call. So it's relatively cheap. And we're just using the native node within n8n and returning a JSON object with the welcome message, 30, 60 day, 90-day plan, and recommended tools. Of course, if you had an onboarding plan for different departments of employees, you could just store that in a database table somewhere, and then Claude would just reference that and structure it in a nice message when you set up this automation. Then we're handling two functions with Slack. We're using an approval message with interactive block kit buttons. So that's like a nice feature where you can actually have them approve or deny directly from Slack. And then it also sends a welcome announcement in the general channel. Gmail also sends a personalized HTML week welcome email to the new hire's personal address, sends an HR error, denial, and timeout alert emails as well. Google Sheets is the audit log, so one row is appended per run on every path. So prerequisites, pretty much having n8n in some capacity, either the cloud platform or you're self-hosting it on a VPS. Google Form, Anthropic API key, Slack, Notion. Notion has a free version, which is what I'm using. So I'm able to have at least one integration set up for free. Gmail and Google Sheets, of course, you can have that for free as well. Unless you have the upgraded version of n8n, you can't set environment variables. So you can just set all of these specific variables directly in your script. And you can see that in the technical guide as well. So let's talk about what's happening with Claude. We're using their Anthropic eight native node and n8n. Again, we're setting max tokens 1500. So relatively cheap. We have a system prompt and user prompt combination, and we're setting a tone by department. So for engineering, it's more technical, sales, relationship, marketing, creative. Um, and then the user prompt enforces a JSON schema, but of course we try to parse that as well afterwards just to make sure there's nothing trailing, no extra formatting, because sometimes that happens with Claude. So that's really it. We're getting the standardized response, always return in JSON, and then just ensuring it's in the right format with the next node. Node 4 builds the Slack block kit payload. So the message contains the employee details in a section block, preview of Claude's welcome message, and an actions block with approve and deny buttons. The button URLs are the key for this. Each button has a URL property. So Slack will open that URL in a browser when the manager clicks approve or deny. And then the URL is the n8n wait node resume webhook. And once you click that, it will go on one of the two branches I just showed you earlier. Now let's talk about the pass-through pattern that I had to implement for this workflow. So when I was using the native n8n nodes like Gmail, Slack, and Notion, it would replace the JSON values with its own API response on output. So that means that the data would disappear after each native node, and the downstream nodes would receive metadata or the result of the Gmail send or something like that, which essentially means we weren't able to consume the right data to follow on with the automation. So that's why we have those pass-through nodes, which calls the employee records back up so that they can be processed in the subsequent steps. Now we'll run a end-to-end test and we'll use the Google Forms to launch this. So let me first show you all of the different areas in which this automation will hit. Of course, we have our direct chat with the employee onboarding app that we created for this. And we have the general channel, which the employee onboarding app will push the welcome message. We also have the Notion form, which will eventually have the new row for each employee that we onboard through the system. We also have our Google Sheets. This will get the new employee data that's written based off the automation. And then, of course, we'll receive a welcome email as well. So we'll kick this off by submitting this new employee. This is Amos Burton, and he's a mechanic. So let's submit this, and we'll look at the executions, and we should see something start right. Okay, so it's running, and then we should receive a Slack message within the employee onboarding channel. So here we go. We just got sent a Slack message for Amos Burton to join the engineering team. So we'll approve this. Okay, now let's go back to Slack and we should see a welcome message now sent to the channel. We should also see a welcome email in here. Okay. So of course you could set up all of your onboarding materials in this, and then we'll click through to this Notion link. And this is where you can list out all of the employees' actions that they need to do to get fully onboarded. But you can see we have a Notion page already created for this employee just from launching that process. And then here we have our overall dashboard. Here's all of our outstanding employees. So let's run one more test. So now we have our latest employee, Carlos Inaros. He's a sales manager in the sales department. And we're actually going to deny this employee from being onboarded. So let's see. We submitted the response. I'm back in Slack. I'm expecting a approval request to come through shortly. And I'm going to deny this request. Colors and arrows. We do not want him. So we're going to hit X. Um, we should, okay. Now let's go back. So let's go in Google Sheets now. We saw that two of these employees were successfully added and then we denied the third one. and there will be no Notion link, there'll be no Slack uh, area available for them. I mean, or Notion. So yeah, that's it. I mean, simple automation, and the point is that you can set up this entire workflow without having to manually onboard anyone, send them a bunch of disparate materials, relying on various people to hold up their end. Everything is just automated, and you ensure each employee has the same onboarding experience. So just to summarize, without automation, a new hire submission will go to an HR inbox. Someone may or may not read it in a timely manner. They then have to email various personas, the hiring manager, wait for response, create accounts across all these different tools. And with this system, we're running the same sequence in minutes from the moment the form is submitted or whatever the kickoff process is for a new employee. All of the welcome messages, the plans are set in place. The Notion area is set up. Of course, you could use Asana as well, but all of the main issues that you would normally run into are handled here, and it's just plugging in whichever details are relevant to your business, and it's quite cheap to build as well. Which brings us to the cost, time, and skills section. Because of the low fixed cost of the number of tokens, and of course, if you had a more complex range of personas or onboarding materials, you could up the token amount, but you really don't need much to run this type of orchestration. The main cost is going to be hosting the VPS, which has n8n, and maybe if you wanted to upgrade that, that would be additional cost. But the actual orchestration part of this is next to nothing. Of course, once you scale across hundreds or thousands of employees, using tools like Slack, Notion, your email server, all of that, of course, that's going to have costs. Assuming you already have a similar number of employees, this just helps to automate that admin heavy portion. In terms of time to build, this takes around 3 to 5 hours to build. I would say this is a beginner to intermediate, friendly because it's quite a straightforward workflow. You don't have to think about all of these back end ambiguous things that are happening. A lot of the tools that you're interacting with in this automation are very straightforward to set up. So this system handles the most fragile part of employee onboarding, which is the gap between when they are officially accepted and then everything being provisioned for them, accounts, their onboarding checklist, ensuring that they have the right tasks to basically hit the ground running in their role. And a few things to point out in this n8n, we can send approval requests through Slack and then actually wait for the response within the automation. And that can time out for, 48 hours or whichever time period that you put. We're also using pass-through logic here. So when we have the response from a cell like Gmail, which would say that, uh, rewrite metadata saying it's successfully sent a message. Well, we still need the employee details from the previous steps, so we'll call that forward to process subsequent cell or nodes. And everything writes to the audit log, so regardless of what happens, whether it's denied, timed out, it will write to that audit log so that you have an idea of what's going on with your business. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this useful, please subscribe for more automation builds. And we're trying to build across n8n, AWS, any automation platform, and focusing on business automation. Thank you so much for watching.